All right, going live in 3, 2, 1. Well, this is TNZ episode number 24. We got Tina on this evening. Hello, Tina. How are you?
What's up? I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay, so did you want to discuss what you were saying before we went live about your snow situation?
Oh yeah. It keeps snowing here really bad, and I think we got like 3 inches or so today, and it all hit right on my drive home. So
Oh,
yeah, I had to drive through that on the freeway. It got stuck in my driveway. Fortunately, the head of my apartment company's like maintenance guy is my neighbor. So he got out and pushed my car into the driveway. And as a favor to him, I shoveled our whole parking lot area. There's only 5 spots though, so it's not big, but
well, that's really nice of you, actually. That's really
yeah.
nice.
Well, I mean, he said he came out and pushed my car. That is very kind. I mean, he had to because if I stayed there, he would not have been able to park. So he literally had to do it because we both couldn't be parked in the road. Um, but as a favor, yes, I did. As a thank you, I did do that, and he was really nice about it. So,
That's cool. Well, hopefully you won't get. Is it going to drop below freezing? Is it all going to freeze tonight? You're going to have to go out tomorrow morning, fight through that.
I think so. He sprinkled a bunch of salt, and salt doesn't really do much when it's frozen out. When it's free, when it's below zero or like below freezing, salt doesn't activate. So let's hope for his sake that it does stay above freezing so he can like do his thing, so that salt can do its thing because um, I want the best for him. He did a lot for me, so I don't want his efforts to go to waste.
The I can tell you that I've said this. I live on a very steep hill, and I've tried once in a while what do I say doing something at the same time. Whenever it snows, surprised that whenever I'm not expecting the snow, I walk outside. Well, I used to have a job anyway. I used to actually leave my house to go to work. That is, I'd wake up in the morning. I'd be like, oh my god, there was like all the snow out there, and I'd have to drive down the hill. And it's not a public road; it's a private road. So I'd have to inch my way down the hill very, very slowly, at 4 o'clock in the morning, which was very, very annoying. So, and very
Yeah.
and that's the only time I don't like the snow is driving up and down the hill I live on. Otherwise, I love the snow. I actually love driving it. So, but the so the snow part that's and one other time I was in there's a place called Roslyn. It's just outside of DC. It's in Arlington, and there's a ramp that they did not clear or put any snow, or they didn't clear the ice, or I'm sorry, they didn't clear with a plow, and no one ever used the ramp because they don't really know it exists. It's kind of weird. It's hard to explain, but it's like this hidden ramp that gets you onto another road. And I went on it too fast, and I went down, my brakes locked up, and I slid for about maybe 30, 40 feet, and I thought I was going to slam into the wall when it came to the curve, and I came like inches away for that without actually hitting anything. That was that was very scary. So,
Wow.
so hopefully you don't have to go through what I had to go through with the slippery conditions there. But the but that's the only time after that I realized I love driving through the snow, probably because they treat the roadways, and that's why I'm able to drive. I know how to handle myself on that. When it's not treated, yeah, it's awful. It's ridiculous. You can't. I'm terrified of it at that point. So
Yeah. Well, that's good that you have the ability to like understand how to drive on snow and kind of have like a good sense of control. I love snow also, and I do like driving in the winter, but half of driving in the winter is driving with other people in winter, and they don't drive well. So,
yeah,
but good for you for like doing that. That's so scary, but obviously I'm glad you're okay.
yeah. So, no, before we go too far, don't forget. I want to make sure everyone remembers. Oh, and we have a Kairua. Sorry, I can't remember how to pronounce the name. I apologize. Hello. So, but don't forget, everyone, if you want to help support what we're doing, I have an affiliate link in the description below for NordVPN, and that's if you click on that, you buy that. that will help us do what we're doing here, and you get a nice discounted rate. And I can definitely say that I've used NordVPN. I used it for quite a while actually, and it always worked well, and it always did exactly what they said it would do. And as far as going on to different websites, you can definitely hide your identity, and it works pretty well. And sometimes I will say that some government websites will be able to detect you, so that's just the way they are. They not detect you; they can detect that you're using a VPN. I should say they can't detect you though, so it still hides you. It just doesn't. They just will say you can't look at our website unless you turn off your VPN, which is kind of funny. But other than that, it does work pretty well. So if you click on there and you go ahead and if you decide to purchase that, that would help us out, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Easy to use, also, like not complicated.
No, yeah, you're right. It's very easy.
Which is so.
Yeah, you just click on it. This is our question for today. This is our, but yeah, just click on it. It gives you a little map, and you can just click on it. It'll find a server for you automatically, and you're ready to go. So, we got another one asking, Tina, where are you from?
Oh, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
So, now is it Cleveland? Is that bad for snow? Is that a common? I don't know if we've discussed this before. Is that pretty bad? Do you get snow? Is it how would you describe the annual snowfall?
Well, in Cleveland, it's coming off the lake, so there's like big lake effect happening. I didn't really realize how severe that it really is until this year. It's just is like hammering down, but it's different than like Wisconsin, just because it might snow like more frequently, but it's the wind here that really gets me, and it blows that snow so far and so hard. And I think last year it was not this bad, but this year it's like relentless. So I think the lake effect has a lot to do with that.
Yeah,
But
I've heard upstate New York. I've heard about like Syracuse, New York, and all that. I've heard about how bad it is up there.
yeah, and like in Wisconsin, there's all the trees, so it's always blocking the wind and stuff. So I don't ever have to deal with wind in the winter. It usually just falls straight down.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll hope you're safe there. To keep us updated too. I'd like to know next week as to how everything panned out for you, how everything worked out for you with this. So our sure viewers want to know as well. So let's see. So here's our question for last week. We asked, if you were on a boat and you saw what you thought was a hand sticking from beneath the surface, what would you do? 75% overwhelmingly paddle away and get help. Let's see. Next, we got 10% with high five the hand. So,
yes.
6% with get into the water and investigate. 5% with check it out from a distance and not tell anyone about it at 3%. So,
we got some pretty honest people here, and I respect that. Thank you, everyone. Because if that was me under the water, I would need you to go get help. So I can count on most of you.
Okay, so looking at the responses here, is this hold on, let me bring my magnifying glass out. Give me 1 second. This. Creations 1977. Take a selfie with it.
Yeah. Love to have evidence of the crime.
Let's see. Evan Brackney. Let's see. The best thing to do is if you don't see it moving or reaching, to call authorities and don't touch it. Bodies left in water are often fragile. You don't want to I'm sorry. Don't want
to damage it.
To damage it. Thank you. There you go. Damage it. Or leave your own prints in possible crime scene, even though the surrounding area, the police will want to investigate it and carefully leave the area and call the police and report the count. Okay. Report the cadaver. Okay.
Very true. That's very true. That's spoken like a true crime fanatic right there.
Let's see. We got the chosen one with greet it with 2 tons of American love.
Is that a phrase? I've never heard that before, but I like that. 2 tons of American love.
I've never heard it before either. It just sounds pretty funny. So
it does. Yeah, I like that.
Let's see. OG will remember you. Let's see. It was below G. I'm not sure what that means. SN5. Okay. And let's see. I didn't see shit for my
Yeah.
MS. And that old, okay, this is one we already talked about. The old meme comes to mind. LOL.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay. Alrighty.
Nice.
So I
Those
don't
are
think,
good responses. Those are good responses from everybody.
yeah, I don't think it really changed very much, though. I think it's about the same. The percentage wise, I mean, it looks about the same. So, alrighty. Yeah, thanks very much. So you had we were discussing a question we wanted to ask for tonight's show. And I think you said it was based on the movie we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I am just curious. So tonight's movie is it a biopic or a biopic?
Um,
You know the pronunciation. It's a movie about Andy Kaufman's life, played by Jim Carrey.
right.
Biopic?
I honestly, I just thought it was I wasn't even thinking of either of those words. Now I can't even think of the word I was thinking of.
It's like
Um,
I'm not sure either. I think that's what it is.
I was thinking about that before we went live. Now I completely gone blank here.
Like, what is the specific definition of that?
Basically, just oh shoot, what is it? I know the word, I just can't think of it. Just a short synopsis of his life. His I guess I hate to use these expressions, but his 15 minutes of fame, so to speak, because he was only popular for like maybe 5 years at the most.
Really? Okay.
So, yeah, he was, and so it's because he died so young, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
it's if he hadn't died so young, he probably would have obviously. But I think he would have been more popular for much longer. But yeah, so a biography, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, like a biographic film. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, how would you like to? What is the question you'd like to ask?
Um, well, Andy Kaufman was for someone who's not very well versed in comedy, like maybe some of our viewers are. I have a really tough time describing Andy's comedy, just because it's so layered and so deeply, like it is so intricate and it's so personal
I
that I don't know how to describe it.
I just simple. He's a troll. That's all. He's
He
trolling
is
me.
the ultimate troll. He
Yes.
really is.
Yes.
So I want to know what everyone's favorite type of comedy is. And yes, now that you say that, Zoom, we are going to include troll in this response.
Okay. And he was a
In this,
troll. I was very much alive during this period of time. I was between the ages of like 10 and 15 when this was going on. And
okay.
he the word troll did not mean have the same meaning then that it does now. So we're using a modern term to describe him. So I wouldn't even know what you would call him using the 1980s terminology, to be honest. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
but yeah, for a modern perspective, he would be a troll. This would be a troll. So trolling
Yeah.
him and Bob Zamuda. We're definitely trying to troll everybody. So, but so okay. So I'm sorry. What was the question? What kind of comedy?
I would say what type or style of comedy is your favorite?
What is your favorite? What is your favorite? What is your favorite style of comedy? Style. Yeah, we got Desmond Haas. I'll bring him up real quick. Desmond Haas 3.0 saying hi. Hello, Desmond Haas. Style of comedy.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Just because I am not in the stand-up scene, but there's so many different types. So I think I'm just gonna break it down very simple.
Oh, you okay? When you said style of comedy, I was thinking I was going to throw in there like I thought you meant like maybe I didn't know you meant specifically for stand up. Did you want me to add that in there for stand up? Because I thought you might have meant
No, not necessarily. No,
okay,
I'm definitely open to like all types of comedy there.
okay.
Um,
Because
but
my first reaction, that's not my favorite, but my first reaction would have I would think slapstick would probably pop into there, and I can't imagine slapstick really being something for a stand-up routine. So,
No, I agree. So let's do slapstick.
one word or two.
I think it's one in this context.
Is it okay? Okay.
I would say satire.
Okay. Trolling. Okay.
Yeah, trolling.
How's TROULING?
TROLL.
Thank you. Okay.
Slapstick, satire, trolling. I'm thinking like surreal humor, observational humor, character, like character gags. What do you think about those? Any of those sticking out to you?
Yeah. Observational seems pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like let's leave the fifth one open so people can.
But I'm not sure. Sorry to pronounce your name. It looks Russian. Little faces there. So thank you. Yeah, so observational. You agree with you like observational?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I got that right.
And maybe
Yes.
other / poster reply.
Yeah. There you go. Your choice. Leave a comment. There we go. Oh, wait. Put a little slash in there. There we go.
LEAVE.
Oh,
For leaf.
what did I do wrong? Where's that?
Add an A right there in the middle. LEAVE.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I left it. Okay. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice. I think this is good. I mean, I'm just curious, like, what do people find funny? Because everything in this movie was so puzzling, but it made sense if you're watching it in this movie format. But living through this stuff in the moment, I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on, like, having lived through Andy Kaufman, the period of Andy Kaufman. Yeah, it was a really interesting movie.
Okay.
I think it's ready to post.
Okay. There we go. Cool. Alrighty, cool. So yeah, we can go into and discuss that now. Let me bring this down here. Okay, so yeah, so you suggested we do a Jim Carrey movie, and I said you suggested too, and I said, why don't we do this? Because I like this movie. Now I'm not a big Jim Carrey fan. I used to. I don't think I think he's very talented. I think he can be funny, but personally, he just seems like a kind of a jerk. So I've heard I've heard stories that he's just not a nice guy sometimes, and I've seen some of he gets on sometimes. He'll say things like he gets kind of pompous and arrogant and denounces people that don't agree with his point of view on things. And I just think it's kind of, it's just, you don't need to do that when you're, he's just kind of arrogant is what he is.
Yeah, that's not a good use of your platform. I agree.
So, and including what I wanted to discuss with this, two of the people that were in this movie also discussed Jim Carrey and personally. So first I'll bring up Jerry Lawler. Do you remember who Jerry Lawler is? He's the wrestler that had the
okay. That's the actor's name.
That's the wrestler's name. His real
okay.
Almost a lot of the people in this were portraying themselves. There were a lot of people just playing their own parts. So they were
really
yeah. So Jerry Lawler right there. There he is. This scene right here with David Letterman is at the time. There's Jerry Lawler on the right. Jerry Lawler, I've watched a few different interviews with him, and he stated that when he and Andy Kaufman were doing their routines together, they were good friends. In real life, they were really good friends. And when he was doing the movie with Jim Carrey was not friendly. In fact, he was actually kind of rude towards him. And he said that Jim Carrey would seem to misunderstand the relationship between the two of them. He thought that Andy Kaufman hated him, and he was putting on the persona that Andy Kaufman put out when their false public persona kind of a thing that that he hated so he would keep that mentality going when they were not doing the the movie, and it got to a point where they actually got into almost an actual physical fight when they were making the movie, because that's how annoying Jim Carrey was toward Jerry Lawler. And
Yeah. Wow. Oh my god.
and Jerry Lawler, it seems like a really nice guy. I'm not a wrestler fan at all, but as I've seen the interviews, he just comes across as a very genuine, honest person, and he's very open. And like I said, Jim Carrey seems like the exact opposite, just someone who's just like kind of obnoxious. And I wouldn't be surprised if what Jerry Lawler is saying is true. Now, Jim Carrey's not come forward and tried to say, defend his side. I have not heard his point of view. So who knows? There's always at least 2 points of view on something. So, but I'm kind of going with the side of Jerry Lawler anyway, because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would just make that kind of stuff up. So, and also there are other people in the movie that have kind of backed up that kind of claim. That it was Mary Lou Henner. You know who she was? Mary Lou Henner is the. Are you familiar with the TV show Taxi? They were recreating the scenes from Taxi, the TV show Taxi, and she was the female lead on that show. So I'm trying to bring her up right here. But I've seen interviews with her saying the same thing about Jim Carrey. Here we go. So here's Taxi. Mary Lou Henner. There's an interview with her, and she said that in real life, Andy Kaufman was one of the nicest people she had ever known. And just like Jerry Lawler said, he was a very nice person.
So I have heard that Andy Kaufman was a very, very kind person. I have heard that.
Mm-hmm. And then Mary Lou Henner said that that Jim Carrey was just kind of rude and kind of seemed to not really grasp what Andy Kaufman was about. He was just kind of rude and obnoxious, even when he wasn't, which is kind of disappointing, because in a way, he didn't really capture what Andy Kaufman was about. He just captured what the character of Andy Kaufman was about. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Because if he's method acting and really taking on the character of taking on the actual persona of Andy Kaufman, which Jim Carrey is a method actor, believe it or not, obviously when he's not doing stuff like Ace Ventura. But it must be incredibly embarrassing if you're method acting who you think that person is, but every single person who actually knows the person that you're portraying says you got it wrong. So that's a major, probably the worst mistake a method actor could make is like getting that wrong. Like maybe that's why he probably hasn't commented, responded to any of those interviews, because he would have to say, yeah, I thought he was this way, but actually he was this way, and that would just draw attention to the fact he didn't do it right. And that's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. By the way, that's Mary Lou Henner on the far right there. That's her.
Okay. I recognized
Christopher
Lloyd. Yep. I did recognize him. I didn't know he was on Taxi.
Yeah. That's where he got most of his fame. I mean, he's been in other movies, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from the 1970s, but this is what really launched him as a well-known person. So
interesting.
The show. Yeah, and then of course Back to the Future came out shortly after that, so he became even more famous.
Yeah.
But before that, and if you watch Taxi, like I said, everybody that's on this these are the actual actors from the show, which is really cool. The funny part is this was made in 1999, and the show was canceled in '84. So they're obviously much older, but it's still cool to see them. It's still cool to see them. Yeah, even like the David Letterman segments with David Letterman. Obviously, it's real David Letterman and Paul Schaefer, but they don't look anything like they did back in the 1980s. So that's
funny.
And Jerry Lawler doesn't look like he did back in the 80s. It's all but it's so cool to see the actual people coming on board to actually reprise their own roles. So
yeah, right. It's probably like if you knew them at that age, watching them at an older age, it's probably easy to forgive that, where it's I'd rather have the real person than someone who's meant to be that person but younger. You know what I'm saying? So I like that too.
We got a couple of people before we go too far. Nolan Salzman says hi. Hello back. And OD, hello Z Moon, hello. And OD's a regular, he's been a regular contributor lately. He says, I confess I have not seen this movie, but I'll listen to the show. Cool. We
Hey,
appreciate
we
that.
appreciate you for sure. Yeah, we're hoping to expose people to new movies that they haven't seen. So if you like this, hopefully you can watch it.
And so I wanted to jump to the David Letterman's stunt right here. It was completely staged. It was completely phony. And I remember this was so, at the time, if you did something like this nowadays, it wouldn't make that big of a news. But at the time, it was so popular. It made all the major newspapers. Everybody was reporting on this. That's how big this thing was. So this whole scene with David Letterman was completely staged by Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman. So they knew that they were, like I said, they were good friends. So they were just putting this as a complete act. But they did it so well that even everybody, including myself, I believed for years that this was real. I always thought this whole thing, the whole fight was real. And the part where he comes on, you can go on YouTube. There's two versions of the original fight on YouTube. There's the one that actually aired because they had to bleep out all the words he said, so you can't hear him cussing. But there's also the actual. I'm not sure. I guess NBC released it. They actually have the actual uncensored one where you can hear Andy Kaufman actually cussing really loudly. So
Wow. So yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, Andy Kaufman is like a very, I don't know, I don't want to say divisive, polarizing comedian, but he basically has like he goes way up and then he goes down, and this is kind of like at a lower point in his career, I believe. Was this specifically meant to kind of like jumpstart him again?
no,
But no.
no,
So
no, no. I wouldn't even say he was really. He was getting to a low point because people were getting kind of annoyed with him what he was doing.
yeah.
But no, this was not really a low point because you remember this was only, like I said, he only started in like 80 75, but he didn't become popular until like 77 78. And then it was the taxi that which really made him popular, and then he died in 84. So we're talking like how many years at the most, like maybe 6 years at the most. So
Wow.
it was very, relatively speaking, that's not very long.
No,
So
not at all.
so
So
he rose really fast, and then he got lung cancer, and then he died very, very quickly, like within 3 or 4 months after he got it. So
wow, that's so sad. Well, he ends up, doing comedy, doing shows, things like that. But he also has a lot of like personal projects is not at all the right thing. But he takes his own comedy and his own um like performance comedy in many different directions. One of them is like amateur wrestling, where he degrades women, but he actually so he actually and I could see that. I could tell where that's not he's not going out and saying like women go to the kitchen. I mean, this is a comedian doing that. And yeah, it might look kind of like surface level of like, hey, like F you, I'm a woman. But they have to, you'd have to realize like this guy is just thriving off of like making people upset here in that moment, and drawing attention to himself, and sometimes bad attention is good attention.
Wait,
um
Andy Kaufman didn't call himself a comedian. He called himself something else. I forget what he called himself,
he's
but
definitely a performer, like a performance artist type of thing. Like I agree with that. I would not call him a stand-up comedian. I wouldn't call him a comedian because he wasn't. If you watch this movie, there's so many points in the movie where people say, hey, Andy Kaufman, it's almost as if everything you're doing is not to make other people laugh. It's only for a joke that you can understand and you and your buddy can understand, and you're the only people that it matters to. Like, if you two are laughing, it doesn't matter if anyone else loves it or hates it. And that's literally what it is. And this movie really portrays that
Mhm.
very well. But one
And
of the directions he goes in is this wrestling, and what
before
a
you
strange direction.
before you say anything, he wanted to be the bad guy. He always wanted to be perceived as the bad guy. So, and I'm not sure if it said it in the movie, but I do know that I've seen documentaries about him that basically he wanted to be. He would. I think Jerry Lawler said this in real life. That if he could give up everything he was doing as far as showbiz and just be a wrestler, he would be a wrestler. So he wanted to be that bad guy. I mean, you know, how in wrestling they're always acting; it's always an act, and he wanted to be the
Yeah.
one that was always perceived as the bad guy, the one that everyone hated when they were doing that. So, and he loved wrestling more than anything, and that's why he basically he started wrestling the women, and he was Jerry Lawler said once he met with Jerry Lawler and some other people, and he said he wanted to do some actual real wrestling, and they were at first now during the 80s. Obviously, everyone knows that wrestling is just an act, but back in the 80s, he wanted the wrestling, whatever they called them at the time, the World Wrestling, whatever they're called. They wanted to portray the idea that was real. So they didn't want him on there because they were afraid it would divulge the idea that it was actually an act. So they didn't want him on board at first.
That makes sense.
So, but they brought him on board. And Jerry Lawler said in a couple of the interviews that it was actually one of the best things for wrestling that ever came around because it brought so much attention to wrestling. And I'm not even a wrestler. I don't even like wrestling, but it was just so fun to see him wrestling the women and just be such a pompous piece of, jerk.
Yeah, it was. It was really funny. I don't know much about wrestling, but I do know one or two things. One, kayfabe is the acting part of it and like keeping up the act. I believe that's what it is. But I do know for certain, for 100%, the villain character, the bad guy in a show, is called the heel. So that's the villain. That's the villain character is the heel, the bad
Okay.
guy, the rule breaker. That's the in wrestling. That is the heel.
Okay. Didn't know that. Okay.
Yep. Now you do.
I've learned something new. So the, and the other thing that was, that I wanted to talk about before, I don't want to go too far before I forget, was the Friday skits. Now, Fridays, I assume you probably never heard of Fridays. I'm assuming, have you? The TV show
No, I
Friday?
had never heard of Fridays before this show or
Okay.
before this
Fridays,
movie.
from what I could gather when I was younger, Fridays was basically like an attempt to have like a Saturday Night Live on Fridays kind of a thing. Like improvisational kind of humors. And my dad told me about both of these incidents before, like he saw both of these when they aired originally. So he saw the Fridays,
Wow.
and then the next, it was like I said, I was probably like maybe 10 years old when these happened, 10, 11, whatever.
Yeah. So you probably
So,
weren't staying up that late
right,
to watch
exactly.
it.
Exactly. So he told me about like the next day. It was like, what was going on, and like I said, the thing with David Letterman made national news. The thing with Fridays also made national news. So that's why these two incidents are shown in this movie, because at the time these were really. I mean, like I said, if this happened nowadays, it might be like it might make a little bit of a news somewhere, if something like that. But it wouldn't. It would most likely be like Hollywood news or something. No one would really care. But
Right.
no one was doing this, so it made national news on both of those, and it was like really got him a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention too, obviously. So, and a lot of I'm trying to get to the spot where Fridays was. Oh, I do want to say, before we get to Fridays, there was this is a little technical thing I'm doing. I know this is kind of silly, but the Pac-Man game, the Ms. Pac-Man game he's playing is actually a little too old. Ms. Pac-Man had not come out at this point in time. So, and also not only that, the Ms. Pac-Man version of the game he's playing is the actual sped up version, which was not released until the late 80s. So he's playing a game that was actually about 10 years into the future in this point. But
Good eye though. That stuff matter, savvy people like you notice that.
I was only because I was a kid. I used to play those games all the time when I was. So Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man were like one of my favorite games. So, where's the Friday skit? That whole the people that were in Fridays were not. I know I told you a lot of the people are portraying their actual themselves. Apparently, from what I gathered, in Fridays, the people there were actually so angry that they did not want to reprise their roles on this movie. So.
Wow. Oh my God. All these years later?
Yeah, if I could find it. Do you know who Michael Richards is?
Mike Richards. It sounds very familiar.
He was on Seinfeld. If you ever watched the TV show Seinfeld, he was the tall, skinny guy, Kramer. He played Kramer.
Oh, okay. I didn't. That's not where that. He was mad. He was that mad all these years later.
I hope I'm saying that right, because if I'm wrong, so hopefully someone will correct me on that. But he was the one that where Andy Kaufman tossed the water on in the original.
Yeah. So you're talking about the scene with the cue cards.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yes. That was probably. It was after this. It was after this. Okay. Now we're getting the no. See, I don't know. That's.
yeah, no, it's definitely before this.
But it's just interesting because that whole scene. Oh, there it is. Oh, there was with the TV.
Was it? Oh,
Yep.
although
No.
that was probably Taxi. I think that was
Yeah,
probably
other way to the right.
to the right track. Okay.
I guess other way doesn't work when nobody knows which way. But it's just interesting that
Oh, and that's Merv Griffin. That's the real Merv Griffin too, by the way. In case
I did recognize him.
Okay.
And his ridiculous tan.
Yeah.
That is the tannest tan I've ever seen.
But yeah, I can't find it. But yeah, basically, the Friday skit was a lot. Now the producer, the guy with the long ponytail, I don't know if you remember him in the. I think he might be the real. I think he was really the same person. I believe he was. But aside from that, everyone else that was on there, I had heard that, like including Michael Richards, they did not want to be part of this because they were so upset by that scene. So, and
wow, that is so. That's just wild because, I mean, honest opinion of that scene though. Andy Kaufman says he goes back on a show after not being on a show for a long time. And they're like, okay, you have to do a scene where you are a person who's supposed to be high. And he throws a fit and he says, I don't do drugs. I don't condone drugs. I don't want to do this. And do you think that was a whole joke to be the bad guy there? Or do you think he sincerely had a personal conflict with the idea of portraying someone high?
He was an avid pot smoker in college. So
was he? Okay, that was a joke then too?
Yeah.
Everything is a joke with this guy.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, wow, he must be really straight edge.
Yeah, there's video where he actually says straight up that he used to smoke pot all the time before he wasn't sure where his career was going to go, like, and then even his friends said that it backed him up, like he wasn't joking then. His friends actually backed him up. Yeah, he was an avid pot smoker and everything. So that whole skit, he was just trying to get under the skin. He was portraying doing something that he really wasn't. So
yeah, wow. And
then of course, the apology scene that takes place in the movie, it takes place almost immediately. The apology actually took place like a week later, and he put on this sob like his wife was leaving him, his kids were leaving him. He doesn't have any. I don't think he had any kids at that point. I don't think he had kids at all. But
they didn't show in the movie.
Yeah, and so and of course everyone's laughing when he's doing that because they know he's it's part of it. The people who know who he is know that that's his routine. So. But
he's like, why are you laughing? I don't have any children. Like, my kids.
No, this is, we got the other person. There's other persona we have not talked about. It was right here, and that's what's his name on the dancing on the taxi right there. I can't remember his name now. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Tony Clifton.
Yeah, Tony Clifton. Thank you.
You're welcome. I had to think about it. I had to sit and think.
Yeah, when I saw when Tony Clifton came on, I hated Tony Clifton. I always hated that character. Anytime he came on Taxi or anything, I despised that character, and that's the whole reason. That's what Tony Clifton was about, was making you hate who he was. It worked very well on me. I was like, I hate this character so much, and every time he was on screen, I hated looking at him. I had nothing to do with him, and so that's basically what Tony Clifton was about, was just to irritate everyone around you. Everyone who saw him was supposed to be irritated to the max. So, and that he did a very good job of doing that. And the funny part is that Tony Clifton was not only played by him, but also Dave Zamuda, his partner, his writer, producer. So it was like a dual act. Sometimes one would play it and sometimes the other person would play it. So, and the joke was at the very, very end of the movie, after he dies, that then you see Tony Clifton come on, and then you see Dave Zamuda standing in the back, like implying that is Andy Kaufman actually still alive? You remember that scene at the very end?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, when I do remember when he said he had cancer, I remember my thinking to myself, "Oh yeah, this isn't just another gag, just like everyone else." I was thinking at that same point in my life, I was thinking the exact same thing. This is just another gag. He's going to show up again in another, couple years and pretend that just be and start laughing at everybody. I thought that. In fact, for a few years after that, I thought he was still probably alive in some way, just hiding away. That's how much of a prankster this guy was. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame anybody for that, thinking that either. He was the ultimate long con, everything, every single moment. And it just, you gotta hand it to him,
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is, I pause right here. You have Danny DeVito playing George Shapiro, which was his manager. The funny part is that Danny DeVito got his claim to fame just like George Christopher Lloyd. It was Taxi that made him popular. So when they showed the Taxi scenes, he was not he was not portraying himself on Taxi. So,
yeah.
which obviously because he's playing a different role in here, I guess it'd be kind of weird to have him do that, play two roles. But that's the reason. That's the reason why. And also, Danny DeVito was one of the producers, one of the key producers, I believe, in this. He's not an executive producer, but just a producer. And he wanted to bring Andy Kaufman's story to the movies. So he was one of the primary people to try to make this movie happen.
Wow.
So he worked with Andy Kaufman during Taxi time and during the Taxi show. And I haven't said this yet, but I usually don't like sitcoms. They're just so annoying to me. But Taxi is one of those few shows that I actually do like, and I watched it from beginning to end. So it's one of the very, very few sitcoms I can sit back and actually watch and actually enjoy it every time it's on. So, and Andy Kaufman, that's where I first saw him. I also thought that maybe first I thought that was a phony voice, if I remember correctly. When he does the foreign man, that's what he called it. In the show, he was called Laka, and after a while, I just thought maybe that was his natural voice. After a while, maybe, and then when he started talking his regular voice, it really, really threw me off because I was like, "Whoa, he talks like a normal person." I couldn't believe it. So, they didn't show this, but on the show, he had he played the character of Laka, and then he went through some sort of like spell or something. He also played Tony Clifton, obviously, but then Laka went through some sort of spell where he talked like a normal average American. So he dropped the foreign man voice and just talked like a normal person for like several episodes. And it went on for a while. And then he went back to being Laka after a while. So
that's hilarious. That's really funny.
So he basically had three characters on that show. Laka, the version of Laka that was like an average American, and then Tony Clifton. So
wow.
And like I say, he had me fooled because I was very young too. But still, a lot of us were fooled. But definitely a lot of us were fooled with what was going on. As far as when I watched this movie, I saw this movie in the theater when it was new, and I was actually, it's like I said, it's for those who are like alive during this time. It's basically like a rehash of what really happened, what happened during that time. So it's not like there's anything really new. But this does give you a general idea as to what was going on if you were not around during that period of time. So you get a general, and it's like I said, he does an okay version of Andy Kaufman doing the character of Andy Kaufman, but he goes a little overboard sometimes in the way he does it. So, and then he doesn't portray Andy Kaufman off camera accurately at all. Not really at all. So.
Yeah, that definitely changes the perspective of the movie itself. You know what I mean? Knowing that someone is not doing it right and taking that false character into a movie that almost hits the mark. You know what I mean? But to anybody who knew him, it didn't. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. This was and at the very end, I can understand. when he's dying here, I know some people do this where they go off to have they think they can get. I can understand why he did this stuff. I wouldn't do it, but I can understand you're desperate, you're dying. Hopefully, you can maybe get something to. You're willing to try anything to help you survive. I've been in situations where I've had, something really bad. I just want to get rid of it, and you're just willing to try anything. So I can understand why he went down to try to do all this stuff, which is obviously a bunch of, phony baloney, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they call it. Woo woo. Sometimes people call it woo woo science. I think that's the term that's used a lot. So
yeah.
And then the funny part is when they show this scene where they're pulling the stuff out of the stomach, and you can see that it's just fake right there. So you see them. Obviously they're not really pulling it out. So
yeah,
he realizes that they're just like him. They're just playing. They're just basically trolling everybody. Or making the people think something that's not really real. So
yep, yeah, that is very true.
The scenes that are in this are there's there's at least one or two YouTube videos on there where you can actually where they made comparison scenes back and forth to show that they do a pretty good job of capturing the idea of what was going on. So like there's Andy Kaufman, the real Andy Kaufman, and then there's Jim Carrey's version of that, and you can see how well he did a job, how well his job was of capturing what he was like when he was doing those scenes. There's a lot of things in there that he comes across pretty good, but like I said, he's a little overboard on some areas. He actually did this where I don't know. He read the Great Gatsby. I don't know if there's any.
I'm sorry. That was one of the funniest things to me, where he's like, "You guys want me to read it, or you want the record? You guys want the music?" And everyone's like, "The record player," and it's just a record of him reading it, like the exact same spot. Yeah. It was genius. That was genius.
And he actually did do a thing where he would actually read the whole book until everyone left. You just read the whole book, and he wouldn't do anything except read the book until everyone was gone. So
hilarious. That is so funny.
I don't know if there's any footage of him doing that though. So, but that is accurate. So as far as from your perspective, how do you feel? I mean, you said you had heard of Andy Kaufman. What do you? I mean, having being a person was not alive during that period of time. How does this come across?
So my exposure of Andy Kaufman, it's not much, but what I knew right away is from the very opening scene of the movie. I was like, or like the opening, even before the credits or whatever. I was like, this is a movie about Andy Kaufman, just because right at the eyebrows, and he's right there. I was like, this is Andy Kaufman. I was like, this is about Andy Kaufman. And I knew he was a little more on the soft-spoken side, and kind of weird. But I knew that was intentional to a certain degree. I did, character-wise, I can see how Jim Carrey is a little overboard when he's doing some of these voices and things like that. When the performance is on. And I didn't have any real experience with like Taxi or seeing him on SNL. I've seen maybe like two sketches of him on SNL. But it was really interesting to actually get to see the story of Andy Kaufman and really the different points of his career. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm glad they didn't focus so much on Taxi, because although that was a very important show, like for the time and for the for all the viewers, and it was such a big deal of a show. There was so much more to Andy and like his certain experiences that I'm really glad they fleshed out, because I felt like they were really key points of this person's life. And it was just really neat to see this, like, we've had a really tough time describing who he is, like this performance artist, like really understand the different
Oh,
like moments, and it was just so wild. There's just so much packed into this. Oh, here it is. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah. So the guy on the right, this was if you go on YouTube, you can see it. This is Michael Richards. It was him over there. So if you watch the difference I saw is when he takes his glass of wine and shoves it in his face. Jim Carrey does it a little bit harder than Andy Kaufman did. So it's almost like they're trying
Yeah.
to get a little bit more to it. It seems like in the movie, it's and the woman he gets into the fight with, like she starts throwing things at him. Like let's see if I can jump ahead, but yeah, that little scuffle before he gets into the big scuffle, he's like
Yeah, he throws it hard.
yeah, he throws it really hard. It didn't seem like it was that hard in the original film. He just kind of dumped it onto him a little bit. So it
Yeah.
seems like he's going just a little bit overboard when they were doing it, almost like they were trying to create because it's a movie, they're trying to make that more than it actually was a little bit. But I mean, it actually happened, but still just slightly more, I don't know, exaggerated, I guess you could say.
Yeah, right. Because um, it seemed really. That's when I was like, that because that's where I questioned it. Like, did he actually was he actually so offended that he got in a fight with these people?
Yeah.
Had
And
I seen the original where he probably more splashed him with water, it probably would have been more apparent that it was a gag.
well, I don't, the people that were there, I don't believe the three actors that were there, the two women and the man, I'm pretty sure, including Michael Richards, I don't think they knew. They
Right,
did.
yeah.
Yeah. But
They could. Ooh.
the producer, I'm pretty sure did. The guy that comes over at him right there is grabbing him in his arm. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that's the actual guy. If you watch the original version, the reason I'm not sure is because in the original one, he has much shorter hair. So it looks funny to see a guy with a long,
Right.
and then you look at the other one, it's like he looks good. But I'm pretty sure it's him. So, but,
Wow.
it's, but and like I said, the apology is so much different than this one. It's not like a big deal. They just want to compress it for time. So it's done a lot. It looks a lot different too, but you can find it on YouTube. It's all there. So, and, but, but yeah, as far as like, I guess, I know you want to wrap everything up. As far as the movie itself, how would you rate this movie? Oh, before we go too far, OD did ask a question, so I forgot to answer that earlier. Is David Letterman in this movie, or is it just a cameo? He's in the movie, yes, and it's for the entire scene. I guess you could call it a cameo, I guess, but he's just for portraying recreating that scene that was there from the original broadcast. So yeah.
Yeah, which is such an interesting and I think smart choice like to do for a movie like this. Like if you can get the real people, and these are like star-studded actors. You know what I mean? These are very like significant people. So why get anyone else,
Well,
than
David
these
Letterman.
real people?
What's really funny is when David Letterman came out. I mean, when the show came out, David Letterman had only been on for a very, very short period of time, doing his late night show. That is, he'd only been
Oh,
doing so, and people were really not familiar with David Letterman. In fact, I remember having to describe who David Letterman was to people when I was back in the day when I was in high school. So, so yeah,
wow. And I remember when David Letterman like stopped doing his
yeah,
show, right? He doesn't do a show anymore.
yeah, he stopped. He
Right.
stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, it's really that's so it's I remember I had to describe with in fact he was so new when that segment took place that oftentimes it was the best way to describe him was it was a spin-off of kind of like the producers that produced Saturday Night Live created his show. So once you said Saturday Night Live, people were like, oh, okay, so it had something to do with that indirectly, not really directly, but kind of
Mm.
indirectly. So some of the people that were part of David Letterman's show were part of set, including like Paul Schaefer. He used to be on Saturday Night Live until the David Letterman show started, things like that. So yeah, but he was. It's always funny when I think about that, because if you watch the old video, he looks so different. The set looks so different. Looks very quaint looking versus what the modern set looked like and all that. So, but yeah, but the I guess that was about it. I can't think of anything else for that. But yeah, you were saying about all the people. It's nice to have all the people on there, and I was making a comment that some of these people weren't really well known at the time. So it's kind of funny that now they are. When the movie came out, obviously. So
Wow. Yeah, that's so neat. And I think even without having much exposure to Andy Kaufman, it makes me want to watch more of him and see actually like what the real material is, because now that like it would be fun to watch everything and be like, who is this guy? He's a madman. Like I don't understand. But now that I have, kind of like I've like reversed it where it's like, okay, I have a really good understanding of like the person and the characters and like the fact that every single thing is a joke. Now going and watching everything, I'll be like, oh, okay, so wow, this was a joke too. Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of it's interesting. And I do see where you have identified kind of like the flaws as far as like Jim Carrey. I do feel that. And that's with having like little exposure to Andy. But what I have seen has very well established who he is. So even without having seen his like, stuff on Taxi and like different SNL sketches, like I have a great general idea of who he was going into this. So I had never seen that character before though. I had no idea
Oh,
of
really? Oh,
that.
Tony Clifton. Oh,
I had no idea. And um I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a nice biography. I think it was solid.
okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I liked it.
okay. Of course I said, of course I think you can tell I liked it too. So, um, the thing, like I said, it's really fun to watch something. And I kind of wish I could take you in a time machine and have you experience it fresh, from my perspective,
Yeah.
just to see what it was like to see the reaction, because from this perspective, people remember Andy Kaufman, but it was just the time period was so different. You never saw people do that kind of stuff back then. So it was just,
Right. Yeah, I can't even I mean, I can imagine, but really I can't even imagine. Like it was he definitely was a trailblazer in that regard. And it it's tough to see people who are like any reaction is better than no reaction, or like when a comedian can so intentionally control the room and control the emotions. When that happens, when you happen to be on the negative side of that, where in the scenes where he's talking with the women and saying like, oh, women, women belong in the kitchen, and like none of you women are stronger than me, like being on the bad end of that is a really bad feeling, because you see this person and you're like, what the hell, this guy's supposed to be really funny and he's actually just a jerk, like, or like, you're here to make me laugh but you're really offending me. Like that is a really tough position to be in. And I think only after the fact can you really analyze that and even open your mind to the possibility of like, hey, maybe that, whether or not they actually are a jerk, like, okay, it's been a little bit, maybe that was actually just part of the routine. You know what I mean? So, like, it's really awesome to see somebody be able to do that. But, like, having it's, some people are like, bad reaction is any reaction is good type of thing. But he wanted to be the bad guy, he wanted to be the heel, he wanted to be the villain. And he was really good at that. And if you can, like, in the moment, way back then, like in that moment, if you were able to separate that, like, good for, that's amazing that you could see that. But I can definitely imagine in the moment it being so difficult to see and understand because no one else had done that before. So
Mhm.
wow,
the
yeah, it was interesting.
here's what David Letterman looked like in the eye, so you can see the difference. So yeah.
Oh my god, his hair.
And
It
this
looks like a woman's hair.
oh yeah. So here's the actual, this is the actual scene right here. So, and the one thing about this, you can go on YouTube and watch it. This is the uncensored version. the funny part is because it's uncensored, they got, you can actually see that when Andy Kaufman comes out. Let's see if I can bring it up here. Right before he gets very end of the fight. Yeah, right here. You can see that David Letterman is kind of in on it because Andy Kaufman is standing on there waiting to be cued to walk on stage, onto the stage there. So you can tell he's waiting to come on stage at that point. Like, but from the camera perspective, if I can do this. Oh, sorry. From the show's perspective, they had the camera, it made it look like he walked in spontaneously, like he was walking in. But you could tell, looking at this, it was actually, you could tell he was waiting to be cued to walk in. So,
Yeah.
we don't have to watch it. I just wanted to, you can see this, but this is basically the actual fight right here. So, and they did a pretty decent job on this and recreating that. The actual, here's the Friday skit too. You can watch that. That's on there. So the whole thing is there. So.
I mean, walking it like there's something about a neck brace that is like inherently hilarious. Like you could do anything in a neck brace and it's funny, but especially coming on TV and like apologizing and making like a national apology is like really funny. So like, and then like eventually just like, no, like, F you, like, it's just so funny. Like, it's so good.
I often wonder if he had lived beyond, he only, I think he was like his 30s. I don't know how old he was, like mid 30s. I don't remember. But if he had lived on, I'm curious as to what kind of world would have evolved, like, because he inspired a lot of comedians. So I'm curious as to
right.
what he would have been like as he got older, if he was still been trolling people, and what other comedians would have sprouted up because of that, that have been inspired. Because I would eventually guess a lot of people know him, but don't know of him because it was before they were born. So they're not familiar with this period of time. So they don't really.
Exactly. And that's me. Like I know the name and I have a general idea, but I did not have those really like super impactful moments that would have instilled in me like I need to be a comedian. Like this is genius. You know what I mean? Like I can watch and be like, okay, yeah, I like that's really funny, and put that in in the time and place. But it having seen things after so much, it definitely wouldn't hit the same. But it's still good. You can still recognize like the talent and how fantastic it all is. But um now that the pool is so big and there's so many people and everything like that, it's just there's just a lot, and we've seen a lot, so it's just different.
The I did want to add Jim Carrey. Two things about Jim Carrey that I heard about this is that he wanted the part so badly. There were like several other famous actors that wanted the role, and I don't remember who they were, but apparently, according to one of the videos I saw, they claimed that Jim Carrey went to those other actors and said to them, you're so good, you shouldn't have to audition for this. And so he was able to convince the other actors who were auditioning for the role not to do an audition. So what ended up happening, because of that, he was the only one that auditioned for it. So he ended up getting the role. Apparently, I don't know
That is devious.
I don't know how true that is, but that was one of the videos said on YouTube. So,
Wow, that is, I don't know if I think that's hilarious, like genius or diabolical.
and the other thing about Jim Carrey, a lot of people have said that when he was doing this, for the 4 months or so that he was doing his role, he stayed in character all the time, the entire time he was doing it, off camera and on camera. So he was always doing that same character. That's the on-screen performance of Andy Kaufman, not for whether he was on or off camera. So he was
Wow.
he had that obnoxious kind of attitude the whole time, apparently. So it got on a lot of people's nerves, apparently.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, that's what killed Heath Ledger. It's like you have to be careful with that stuff anyway. Um, but yeah, oof, ooh, that really does like impact my opinion of the movie in a way. Like it doesn't change like whatever, but it's like that context like really adds to the movie itself. Like knowing that information, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, wow.
So overall, what kind of rating would you give the movie?
Um, I think it was well done. It's like a nice, um, goes through his life, primarily focuses on his adult life. There's a little bit of his childhood, but um, I would give it like a 8.1.
Okay. I'm going to give it a higher. I'm going to say like 8.9. Not quite a 9, but almost.
9. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, and I would recommend it, but obviously keep in mind, like with any of these kind of movies, they're going to take their own liberties and do whatever they add things to it. So it's not going to be perfect, of course, but it's pretty. I mean, like I said, having lived through it, the key scenes that were there, like the Friday scene and the David Letterman scene, are really really done well. So
Yeah.
it's lived through it and all the other stuff. It's fun. It was fun at the time to like just basically get a nice refresh or recap of what I saw when I was a kid. I do remember. I think I did eventually see, even though when I was obviously I didn't stay up very late to see them, but my dad told me about it. I think I eventually did see the actual David Letterman segment. I think they replayed it during the daytime too. So people could see it. I think, I don't know, but I do remember seeing it at one point, and obviously all the curse words are bleeped out. So, it's kind of funny because when you think about it, it was done it was done during what they call safe harbor, so well beyond when kids were asleep. Because David Letterman was on really really late. He had he was on after Johnny Carson, and so he was well within that area where they probably could have gotten away with using that language. But back then they were very censored, regardless of what time of day it was, especially NBC. I'm sure they didn't want that kind of stuff going out. So nowadays they might actually let it slip out. I know for sure on cable they probably would let it slip out without a problem if it was that time of night. But it's I think I've said this before. Even during that time period, you couldn't say the word "suck" on the air. That was a dirty word. So, and
Oh my god.
That's how censored things were back then. So, but yeah, it's for those who have not experienced it, I would recommend watching some of Andy Kaufman's stuff. I'm not a huge fan of Andy Kaufman, but I do like what he did. So I don't go out of my way to watch him all the time, but whenever I saw him, I was I'd be entertained by him. So I put when I was too young, obviously, but I probably would not have even gone to any of his concerts either or shows. So but still, I enjoyed him when he was around. I enjoyed what he did. So
Yeah. Nice. I really liked it, and it motivates me to watch more of Andy Kaufman.
and we got one more comment from OD. Another great movie of Jim Carrey from the same decade is The Truman Show. That's true. Yes, Truman Show.
I've always wanted to see that, so maybe we'll have it on sometime.
And we can go check our question real quick before I wrap everything up. 96 votes so far with what is your favorite style of comedy? 68% overwhelmingly with slapstick, 17% with trolling, observational 0%. Oh my goodness. Satire 11% and 4% with other. So interesting.
Observational comedy is not easy. It's not easily done. So
yeah. So we got dark comedy.
Okay,
humor.
yeah. Why didn't we not put dark on there? That's genius.
Yeah,
I was not thinking that. That's going to be our 6th answer.
and this one down here. Oh goodness, OD. Yes, thank you, OD. Pranks. Oh my god, I've seen some prank videos on YouTube that are. I'm surprised they're even legal. Some of the things they do. The things they do to people are just unbelievable.
Prank and hidden camera shows are so good.
Have you seen the ones where I don't want to get any copyrights, but I'll describe them. They walk into it. They have a fake elevator in a building, and they walk into the elevator, and they do things where they turn the lights off and have people walk out wearing scary masks and scare the people inside the fake elevator.
No, oh my
god! There's one where they go up to the elevator and the elevator floor falls through and they slide into a thing of like gooey stuff. I'm like, how could you get away with that without being sued? But they do it, and they're just sitting there laughing at them. It's like unbelievable. So.
Wow, I've never seen that or heard of that. After the show, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. But yeah, I know I assume that's what OD is probably talking about. There's the old hidden candid camera show from way back in the 60s and 70s. I used to watch that.
I do remember that.
it's nothing like that. Candid Camera was very innocent. This stuff is like brutal. I mean, they do things to people like, I can't believe that. There's no way that could be done in the United States. There'd be lawsuits all over the place. So,
Wow.
but yeah, Candid Camera was good for its time. But this is beyond Candid Cameras for sure. So, but yeah, I agree. I would not want to be part of those pranks where I'm falling into a vat of glue or gooey stuff, whatever that stuff they slide into. It's gross.
Yeah, as long as it's my day off, I'm open to it. But if I got somewhere to be, yeah, they're
Yeah.
getting sued. They're getting sued. Sorry.
So, all right, everyone, and thank you, OD, for all your comments. We appreciate that. And as usual, if you want to support the show, you can always do NordVPN. That's the link in the description. If you want to get down below, you can always, if you like, buy the service, and it would help support what we're doing. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.